بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thanks and gratitude to Him who enabled us to do the good deeds that we're doing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant the istiqamah upon our good deeds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make them a means of forgiveness of what's past and make them a means of hope for what's to come in the future. Today was the 21st of Ramadan. And this is the date that's popularly transmitted to be the day in which Sayyidina Ali Ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala left the dunya. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, there's so much that can be said about him. The time is limited, but one of the things that scholars of hadith have mentioned is that there's nobody from the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam whose virtues are as numerously reported as Sayyidina Ali Ibn Abi Talib. Even Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar, in terms of the virtues which are reported. Now one of the reasons for that is because Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he lived to a later age, number one. And the second more important and fundamental reason is because Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, when he became the Khalifa, there were some political differences that arose, and because of that there was some contention. And sometimes people who he opposed didn't like that. And they didn't have kind words to say about him. So they tried to encourage the people to also say things which were not suiting Sayyidina Ali. Instead, what did the people do? The people began to report what the Prophet said until nobody could reject the virtues of Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib. How honored is he that his honor is from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's so many hadith in regards to his virtues, but I just want to just mention briefly a little bit about the life of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, and from that we'll gain an insight into many of the virtues. First thing, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he was born probably about when the Prophet was 30 years old, 10 years before Revelation. And when Revelation came, he was only 10 years old. One of the things regarding Sayyidina Ali is that he grew up at the hands of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Talib, as he became older and older, it became difficult for him to look after his growing family. So what happened? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam decided that he's going to help Abu Talib by looking after one of his children. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu into his house and he looked after him. And Sayyidina Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, took Sayyidina Ja'far radiallahu anhu and he looked after him in his house. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, from the beginning, he grew in a prophetic household. He was one of the first individuals to embrace Islam. After Sayyidina Khadija radiallahu anha, he was the next person who embraced Islam, and he was only 10 years old. Can you imagine that? It's probably 10 years old here. And when we think how old we are, it just puts you to shame. That Allah gave such wisdom to a person at such a young age. So when he was 12 years old, and the Prophet was instructed to call publicly towards Islam, the Prophet gathered some of the leaders of Quraysh and he began to tell them about Islam, and no one gave a positive response. So Ali radiallahu anhu got up at the age of 12 and he said, "My legs may be weak, Ya Rasulullah, but I will stand with you and I'll support you." And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was always close to Sayyidina Ali. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored him with many different events that happened that show that great rank of his. One of the ones that we hear about is that the Prophet ﷺ, when he migrated from Mecca to Medina, he left Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu in his house in order for the people to assume that he was still there. But the actual objective of the Prophet was not that. The actual objective of the Prophet ﷺ was that despite people standing against the Prophet ﷺ and rejected him, the people left belongings and goods with the Prophet. So the Prophet ﷺ used to look after people's goods. He was a Sadiq al-Amin. He was a truthful one, the trustworthy one. Imagine that even a person who doesn't even believe in you in the greatest of things, he trusts you enough to look after precious belongings. That says something about the Prophet in terms of his standing in society. So the Prophet used to look after the goods of the people. So when the Prophet migrated and left, the Prophet wanted to make sure those goods reached the people. So he left Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu in his house, and Sayyidina Ali later on gave the goods to the people who they belonged to, and then he migrated to Medina as well. The Prophet ﷺ actually paired Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu with himself as a brother. When the Muslims from Mecca reached Medina, because of the difficulties that they had, the Prophet paired them with a Muslim from Medina to look after them, to put them on their feet and help them until the time came where they're more independent and they can look after themselves. The Prophet ﷺ selected Sayyidina Ali for himself. and he paired himself as a brother to himself. The Prophet ﷺ gave his own daughter's hand in marriage to Sayyidina Ali. Even after many people sought to be married to Sayyidina Fatima, and the Prophet ﷺ rejected those and gave it to Sayyidina Ali. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he was honored by the Prophet ﷺ on numerous occasions. On one occasion, during the Battle of Khaybar, the Prophet ﷺ was holding a flag in his hand. And the Prophet ﷺ said that I'm going to give this flag to an individual who loves Allah and His Messenger, and Allah and His Messenger love him. So the Prophet said, tomorrow I'm going to give this flag to an individual who loves Allah and His Messenger, and Allah and His Messenger love him. The next day, every companion was eager that I'm going to take the flag. This is going to be one of the honors I'm going to receive. The Prophet ﷺ said, where is Ali Ibn Abi Talib? The people said that he's not here. He's got an infection in his eye and he couldn't join us. The Prophet ﷺ said, call him. So they called him and he came and he had an infection in his eye. The Prophet took his blessed saliva, rubbed it into the eyes and it cured. And the Prophet ﷺ gave the flag to him. And the Prophet, that was the leadership, military leadership for the battle. And Sayyidina Ali said to him, Ya Rasulullah, shall I fight them until they join us? Look at the wisdom of Sayyidina Ali. Not fight them to destroy them. Shall I fight them until they join us? The Prophet ﷺ said, go and call them towards Islam. That if they join you, that's good. And if they don't, then you fight them. And the Prophet ﷺ reminded him, for one person to become Muslim are your hands. For Allah to guide one person for you is better than a great herd of red camels. Red camels were the best possession that Arabs had. It's like you can imagine red Ferraris. Imagine someone said you can get 100 red Ferraris. You wouldn't be able to stand straight. So the Prophet said to him that for one person to become believer in your hand is better than receiving a whole herd of red camels. The Prophet ﷺ, on another occasion, there's a famous saying of the Prophet ﷺ, Man kuntu mawlahu fa'aliyu mawlahu. Whoever I'm an ally to, then Ali is an ally to him as well. He is a friend to him as well. And there's a little bit of backstory about this. And the reason I want to clarify is because sometimes people take wrong interpretations or misunderstand or even hear things which because we don't know, we don't understand the meaning. So what happened is that the Prophet ﷺ was coming back from Hajj. The Prophet made one Hajj in his life. More than 100,000 of his companions were present there. On the way back, there was a small dispute between Sayyidina Ali and another companion of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ wanted to clear the dispute. That if you got a problem with Ali, you got a problem with me. Man kuntu mawlahu fa'ali mawlahu. Whoever I'm an ally to, Ali is an ally to him. Whoever's my friend is Ali's friend. You shouldn't have any problems. Now, one of the things that people try to use these kind of words is as if the Prophet ﷺ was selecting Sayyidina Ali for caliphate or leadership. Just think about it rationally. If the Prophet ﷺ wanted to elect Sayyidina Ali as the leader of the Muslims after him, he just left an audience of 100,000 plus companions. What better place was there to announce that the leader after me is going to be Ali than a place like that? No one will be able to reject it anymore. And that's why when people bring these kind of things, they're clutching at straws. They say a drowning man clutches at straws. Right? So we need to know, of course, what the meaning is. And the beautiful thing is that the Ahlul Sunnah preserved these statements of the Prophet ﷺ and many similar statements. So there's a couple of things more regarding Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, and after the Prophet passed away, Sayyidina Abu Bakr was elected as the leader, then Sayyidina Umar, then Sayyidina Uthman, and then Sayyidina Ali. In the time of Sayyidina Umar, when Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh used to leave the town, when he used to leave Medina, he used to leave Sayyidina Ali in charge to look after the affairs. He used to be looking after. And Sayyidina Ali was the go-to man for Sayyidina Umar when it came to disputes. That if it came to a dispute and there's some kind of information Sayyidina Umar felt like he was lacking, or knowledge he was lacking, he would go to Sayyidina Umar and ask his view on it. And many an occasion, Sayyidina Umar went to Sayyidina Ali and he gave a ruling which Sayyidina Umar initially didn't give. And Sayyidina Umar said the famous words, لَوْلَا عَلِيٌّ لَهَلَكَ عُمَرٌ. Had it not been for Ali, Umar would be destroyed. Meaning that what I gave, what Ali's spoken, he's made it clear. What I said before, that was not suitable. What he said is suitable. If he didn't correct me, I would be destroyed. And that also shows you the humility of Sayyidina Umar and his fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, he passed away in Ramadan in the 40th year of Hijrah. So the famous date that's mentioned is the 21st. Some mention even the 17th. These early events that happened, sometimes you have different dates that are given because in those times they didn't have accurate calendars like we have now. So you can understand the reason for that. So you hear multiple dates, it just basically means that there's different transmissions and mentioning those. So we don't need to get lost in dates. The importance of the day is it reminds us or gives us the opportunity to remember these special people. Whether you remember 2 days before or 3 days after, it just gives the opportunity to also remember these people and to spread the remembrance of these people as well. So Ali radiallahu anh, he was stabbed during the Fajr prayer. So he was assassinated. So the people who assassinated him were the Khawarij. The Khawarij were the early extremist group. Right? They stood up against Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, and in fact they didn't stand actually just against Sayyidina Ali. They had a plot. So the plot was that they sent out assassins. There was 3 individuals who were sent out to kill 3 individuals, 3 other people. The first was that Abdul Rahman bin Muljim was sent to Kufa, where Sayyidina Ali's headquarters were, and his plan was to kill Sayyidina Ali. Another individual was sent to Damascus, where Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anh was, and another individual was sent to Cairo to Egypt, where Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anh, he was the leader there. And the aim was to create political turmoil amongst the Ummah. Right? That's what they wanted. So what happened? Ibn Muljim stabbed Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, and Sayyidina Ali, when he was stabbed and Ibn Muljim was taken by the companions, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh said that do not kill him. They were ready to kill him. He said, do not kill him. If I die, then kill him. That's retribution. That's the law of Islam. But if I don't die, then I'll decide what happens. Yeah? Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh was martyred, passed away. Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anh, he was actually struck, but it wasn't fatal. He was leading the Fajr prayer and he was struck. This was at the time of Fajr. Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anh, he was ill at that time and he didn't come for the prayer, to lead the prayer. Another individual led the prayer and he was killed. So these guys were seriously looking at causing big trouble. Right? And this shows you, these people, even in this time and age, when people go to the extremes, this is what happens. The only answer they have is killing and murder and catastrophe, cause confusion. And that is a clear sign of people who are in error and misguidance. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from such individuals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire us with the true luminaries from the Ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from amongst his companions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the remembrance a model for our lives.